I turned 75, eating dinner by myself, while my family posted photos from a beach vacation, paid for with my life savings. It was supposed to be a special birthday. I hadn't had one in years, not since Raymond passed. That man used to make me feel like a queen every April. One time he even rented a small hall for my 60th and had the neighbor kids sing me happy birthday off key. It was sweet. He always made sure I felt seen. But this year, I let myself hope again. It was my 75th. That number felt big, like it deserved more than just a phone call or a card. Before I start my narrative, tell me in the comments what time it is and where you are listening from. I enjoy listening to you. Additionally, please click the subscribe button. If you haven't already, you have no idea how much it helps me. Let me now explain what actually transpired. Back in February, my son Miles stopped by. He had that fast-talking smile on, the one he used to get out of trouble when he was younger. His wife, Dana, sat on the couch scrolling on her phone, nodding along every now and then, like she'd already heard the whole speech. "Mama," he said, "we're planning something real nice for you this year." I looked up from the laundry basket and blinked. "For what?" "Your birthday," he said, beaming. "Big 7-5. We want to take you somewhere warm, by the ocean. Just pack your sundresses. We'll handle the rest." I laughed. "What ocean? We're in Ohio." Miles just grinned wider. "Exactly. We're getting you out of Ohio. You deserve it." I didn't know what to say. Nobody had offered me a trip since before Raymond got sick. I hadn't even left the county in over 10 years. My days were slow. Grocery store on Tuesdays, church on Sundays, and maybe a potluck once in a while. That was it. Nothing fancy. The thought of salt water and sun felt far away, but I held on to it anyway. The next week, Miles called. "Mama, I just need your card real quick to reserve the tickets. Prices are going up." I paused. "What card?" "Your Visa. The one you keep for groceries and things. I'll just use it to lock things in. Nothing big. We'll pay it off before the trip." I hesitated. I didn't like sharing my card, but this was my son, and it was a gift, right? A real trip, a chance to laugh somewhere new. So I read the numbers to him over the phone. He said, "You won't regret this, Mama," and hung up. I didn't tell anyone, not Dolores at church, not my sister-in-law, Pearl, down in Cincinnati. I didn't want to jinx it. I just held it close and started planning in my own little way. I pulled out the dusty carry-on from the closet, wiped it clean, bought a new comb, a tiny bottle of travel lotion from the Walgreens. I even ironed the blue and white dress with the hibiscus pattern, one of the last nice ones Raymond ever bought me. It felt silly maybe, but I started keeping a list. Sandals, hat, extra socks, my small Bible. There was a tiny thrill in packing again. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like to look forward to something. Each morning, I'd glance at the suitcase sitting by the door and smile a little. Miles said we'd be flying out in late April or early May. "Right around your birthday," he said. "Perfect timing." I asked him again at the end of March. "Do we have the exact dates yet?" "Still working it out, Mama," he said. "Flights are being tricky, but don't worry, it's all lining up." I believed him. Maybe I shouldn't have, but I did. I bought a new pair of slip-on shoes, purple, on sale. They pinched a bit, but they made me feel dressed up. I even went ahead and took down the plastic bin of swimsuits and cover-ups from the top shelf in the hall closet. Most of them didn't fit right anymore, but just the idea of needing one again made me feel young, not 75, just Brenda. Then I got the call the night before my birthday. I was in the kitchen, cutting up sweet potatoes to prep for dinner. My phone rang, and I saw Miles's name. He sounded distracted, like he was driving. "Hey, Mama, listen, we're going to have to push the trip a bit." I stopped stirring. "Push it?" "Yeah, just a few weeks. Flights got crazy. We're juggling some schedules." I swallowed hard. "Oh, okay. But I'll still see y'all for dinner tomorrow, right?" There was a short pause. "Yeah, of course," he said. "Wouldn't miss it." I tried not to sound disappointed. "That's fine. Plans change. I understand." But the truth was, my stomach sank the moment I hung up. That night, I sat on the edge of the bed, looking at my suitcase. I didn't unpack it. I just stared at it for a long while. Purple tag still hanging on the handle. My name written in thick black marker. For weeks, I'd carried around this feeling like maybe, just maybe, this birthday would be different. Not bigger, just not lonely. I turned off the light and got in bed early. Told myself it was okay, that tomorrow at least, I'd get to see them, share a meal, maybe take a picture or two with my granddaughter. That would be enough. I didn't need the ocean. I just wanted to feel remembered. Let me ask you, would you trust your own child with your savings if they said it was for something special? The morning of my birthday started with music. I put on my gospel playlist, the one I always play when I need to feel close to something steady. I moved through the house slow but with purpose, the kind of day where you hum to yourself without realizing. I set a fresh pot of coffee and stood at the stove, peeling sweet potatoes. I'd planned the menu a week ago: fried catfish, collard greens with turkey necks, cornbread from scratch, and a lemon chess pie for dessert. The kind that sets just right in the middle if you bake it low and slow. I used the good plates, the ones with the little gold edge I only take out for holidays. I even reached high up into the cabinet to pull down the tall candles I usually save for Christmas Eve. I wanted it to feel special, not fancy, just meaningful. I imagined Miles walking in with Dina and my granddaughter, Aria, maybe carrying a little gift bag or flowers. I pictured them sitting at the table, passing dishes, laughing. I told myself it didn't matter that the trip was pushed. What mattered was they'd be here. I put on my blue floral dress, not the loud kind, just soft, with buttons down the front. Raymond used to say it made me look 10 years younger. I curled the ends of my hair a little and added a touch of lipstick, even though I knew it'd wear off by dinner time. By 5 o'clock, everything was ready. The house smelled like butter and sweet onions. The pie was cooling on the counter. The cornbread sat in the oven on warm, wrapped in foil. I lit the candles on the table and sat for a moment just looking around. I'd set 5 places: me, Miles, Dana, Aria, and a spot for Aria's little friend, who sometimes tagged along. I figured maybe they'd bring him too. I folded the napkins, nice and neat, tucked the forks in, just so. Then I waited. At 5:30, I got up to turn the greens down to low. I told myself they were probably running late. Traffic, maybe. At 6 o'clock, I checked my phone. No messages. At 6:15, I texted Miles. "Y'all still coming? Food's ready." No response. I stood at the window for a while, just watching the street. I live on a quiet block, not much activity past dinner time. A few porch lights were flicking on. One neighbor walked her dog, nothing else. By 6:45, I turned the oven back on and reheated the catfish. By 7:15, I poured myself a glass of sweet tea, though my throat was dry and my stomach felt heavy. At 8 o'clock, I finally turned off all the burners. The candles had melted halfway down. Wax was starting to drip onto the table runner. Still no call, no text, nothing. I sat down in my chair, staring at the food like it might explain something to me. It didn't. The house, once filled with smells and hope, had turned quiet, the kind of quiet that doesn't feel peaceful. It felt hollow. I picked up my fork and tried to take a bite of the greens. They tasted fine, but they didn't sit right. I pushed the plate away. I looked across the table at the empty chairs and felt something shift in my chest. Not anger, not yet. Just a deep ache. My eyes landed on the little card I bought myself the week before. It was still sitting on the edge of the table, unopened. I had picked it up at Dollar General while grabbing laundry soap. It was pink with glitter and said, "You're still glowing." At the time, I thought it was cute. Now it just looked off, like a bad joke told too late. I opened it slowly, just to see the inside. "Wishing you joy, beauty, and love today." I stared at that sentence for a long time. That's when the tears came. Not loud, not messy. Just a slow, quiet drip. My shoulders shook a little. I wiped my eyes with the back of my hand, then the edge of the tablecloth. I sat like that for a while, not moving, just letting it settle. No one called, not even a quick, "Sorry, Mama." At 9:30, I got up and started putting things away. Wrapped the pie in foil, sealed the greens in a container, put the catfish in a bag for the freezer, though I knew it wouldn't taste the same again. I blew out the candles and turned off the music. The silence that followed felt bigger than the room. I changed into my nightgown and sat on the edge of my bed. My suitcase still stood by the door. I hadn't touched it since Miles called. Still packed, still ready, still hopeful. I didn't have it in me to unpack it just yet. I laid down slow. My knees hurt more than usual. I pulled the blanket up and stared at the ceiling fan spinning above me. Tick, tick, tick. The blades made a soft sound, and for a moment, it was the only thing keeping me from crying again. Maybe they forgot, I whispered to myself. Maybe it was a mix-up. Maybe they lost track of time. But deep down, I knew. They didn't forget. They just didn't come. Tell me, have you ever cooked a meal from love, only to eat it alone? Have you ever dressed up for people who never showed up? I woke up slow the next morning. My back ached more than usual, probably from how long I sat at the table the night before. I stayed in bed for a bit, just staring at the ceiling. The fan spun gently, same as always, but it didn't bring much peace. The house was still quiet, and not the good kind of quiet. I shuffled to the kitchen, tied my scarf tighter, and put on the kettle. I didn't want breakfast, just needed something warm in my hands. I opened the fridge, saw the leftovers stacked neatly from last night, then closed it again. I couldn't bring myself to reheat anything. The dishes were still in the sink. I left them there. I sat on the couch, wrapped up in the shawl Raymond gave me one Christmas. The one that still smells a little like him, cedar wood, and something else I've never been able to name. I held my tea, stared at the floor, and let the ticking of the clock on the wall keep me company. Around 11, I heard a knock, 3 soft taps. I stood up slow and peeked through the curtain. It was Delano, sweet boy from 2 doors down. His grandma used to sit on that same porch until her knees gave out. He's always been polite, brings my trash cans up without me asking. I opened the door. "Morning, baby," I said, trying to smile. "Hey, Miss Brenda," he said, holding up a plastic grocery bag. "Brought you that dish soap you mentioned. Bless your heart. Come on in." He stepped inside, set the bag on the counter, and looked around. "Smells good in here." I let out a tired chuckle. "Leftovers from last night. Had a little birthday dinner." "Oh yeah?" he said, brightening up. "Happy belated. Hope it was nice." I gave a nod, but didn't say much. He noticed my phone on the table and picked it up. "Still having trouble with the Wi-Fi." I nodded again. "Thing keeps freezing. I don't know what I'm doing with it anymore." "Let me see," he said, already sitting down and unlocking the screen. "Might just need to reset the network or update the router." I stepped aside and started wiping the counter, even though it was already clean. I needed something to keep my hands busy. He was quiet for a second, then said, "Wait, is your granddaughter's name Aria?" I turned around. "Yeah, why?" He hesitated, then held up the screen. "I follow her on Insta. She just posted something. Might be an old photo, though." I walked over and looked. It wasn't old. It was last night. There they were, Miles, Dana, and Aria, all in matching t-shirts that said, "Lively Family Vacation." They were smiling, arms around each other, in front of a bright blue pool, palm trees in the back. One of those fancy places with white umbrellas and beach chairs. I blinked, didn't say anything. He swiped to the next one. Dina had a drink in her hand, one of those colorful ones with a slice of pineapple on the rim. Her caption said, "Wellness and sunshine. Just what we needed." Then another, Miles holding a cigar, laughing hard. Then Aria, with a gold bracelet on her wrist, posing in front of some kind of spa. Photo after photo. None with me, none even mentioning me. The last one hit the hardest. It was a dinner table outside under string lights. 3 plates, 3 chairs, and 1 cake in the middle, with the words, "To us." I couldn't breathe for a second. I leaned against the table. Delano looked up. "I didn't mean to. "It's okay, baby," I said, barely getting the words out. "Not your fault. They told me it was postponed." I whispered, "Said they'd come by, said we'd still do something together." He sat there quiet, not knowing what to say. I didn't expect him to. I felt the tears sting, but I held them back. I just kept looking at that photo. My family had gone on a full vacation, the kind with coordinated outfits and ocean views, and they used my money to do it. I'd been sitting here, dressed up, waiting at a table they never planned to show up to. I pressed my hand flat on the table, trying to steady myself. "They left me," I said. "And they didn't even try to hide it." Delano stood and walked over. He didn't say much, just stayed by my side. That's what hurt the most, I think. A young man who barely knew me could see my pain, sit with it, and not try to explain it away. Meanwhile, the people I raised, fed, clothed, prayed over, had treated me like I was invisible. After he left, I sat on the couch and pulled the shawl tighter around me. I thought I was hurt before, but this was different. This was truth I couldn't unsee. I didn't reach for my phone, didn't text Miles, didn't call Dina. I sat still. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't poor timing. It was a choice. Tell me, have you ever discovered something online that broke your heart in silence? What would you do if you found out the people closest to you were celebrating while you were sitting alone at home? That night, I didn't sleep much. I sat in my chair with the lamp on low, staring at the wall. The room felt different, like the air had thickened, or maybe it was just me, heavier from everything I'd seen. The photos kept flashing in my mind. The pool, the cake, the "To Us" caption. And all I could think was, how long had they been planning this? I stood up slow, walked over to my little desk in the corner of the hallway. That desk hadn't been touched in weeks. A stack of unopened mail sat crooked on the side. My old laptop, the one Raymond bought before he passed, was covered in dust. I plugged it in and waited for it to wake up. I hadn't used it in a while, but I remembered the password. Raymond always told me to write it down, but I'd memorized it. Blue tulip number 47. After a ceramic flower he once bought me from a flea market. The screen came on, slow, but it came. I opened my email. It took a few seconds to load. When it finally did, I typed "confirmation" in the search bar, then "resort," then "booking," and there it was. An email with a subject line that read, "Your reservation at Coral Palms Beach Resort is confirmed." My hand froze on the mouse. I clicked it. A full week's stay, 2 oceanfront rooms, spa package, add-on excursions, all under my name, my address, my credit card. I scrolled down and saw the charges. Over $8,000, paid in full. My mouth went dry. I sat back in the chair. It wasn't just that they left me behind. It wasn't just that they celebrated while I sat alone at a full table. They used my money to do it. They didn't just forget me. They took from me, lied to me, smiled in my face while making plans without me. And I'd given them the card. I stared at the numbers on the screen until they blurred. Then I closed the laptop and just sat there. The suitcase was still by the door, purple, tag still hanging, packed neatly like someone who thought they were going somewhere. I looked at it for a long time. I had folded each item with care. The blue dress, the sandals, the handkerchief that used to belong to Raymond. I had packed for joy, for family, for memories. They had packed for themselves, and they never looked back. I stood up and went to the mirror in the hallway, the one that hangs crooked because the nails never been quite right. I looked at myself, not just the lines in my face or the silver in my hair, but deeper. I saw a woman who had worked her whole life, who paid every bill on time, who raised a child through lean years, skipped vacations, wore hand-me-downs so he could have new shoes. I saw someone who never asked for much, and somehow, even that had been too much. I didn't cry this time. I just stood there. I didn't feel old. I felt used. And the worst part was, they probably thought I wouldn't find out, that I'd sit in my chair, sip my tea, and just be thankful for whatever crumbs came my way. But I wasn't that woman anymore. Something had shifted, quietly, but fully. I walked back into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water. I took a sip, set it down, and leaned on the counter. My knees were tired, but my mind was awake. I didn't call Miles. I didn't yell or send angry messages. That's not how I move. Instead, I picked up a pen from the drawer and jotted down the resort name, the date, the charge amount. I didn't know what I'd do next, but I knew I needed to start writing things down. Something told me I'd need it. That night, I sat on the edge of my bed, opened my Bible, and read a single verse. Be still and know that I am God. I closed the book and looked over at the purple suitcase, still packed, still waiting. But I wasn't. Let me ask you, what would you do if the people you loved most used your name to live a life you weren't invited to? How do you protect yourself when the hurt comes from inside your own home? It was Thursday evening when Miles showed up. I heard the door open before I even turned around. He still had a spare key, never knocked, just walked in like he owned the place, same as he did when he was a teenager, tracking in dirt and never closing the fridge all the way. Hey mama, he said, like everything was fine. I was at the sink folding dish towels. Didn't look up right away. He walked in carrying a small white paper bag. Sat it on the table like it was something special. We brought you this, he said. I turned and opened the bag. Inside was a slice of red velvet cake from a fancy bakery across town, still in its plastic box, like something picked up last minute. I stared at it, then at him. That what you brought back from Florida? I asked. His smile faltered, just for a second. Then he gave a little chuckle. So, you saw the photos? I saw everything, I said. The pool, the shirts, the bracelet on Arya's wrist, the champagne, the caption that said, "To us." He shifted on his feet, scratched the back of his neck. Mama, we didn't think you'd want to travel that far. You get tired easy. I didn't blink. That's not what you said. You told me it was postponed. We changed the plan last minute, he said. It wasn't that deep. I walked slowly to the table, placed the dish towel down, and stood across from him. You used my credit card, Miles. You paid for all of it, in my name. He looked like I slapped him. What number you gave me the card? For emergencies, I said. Not for beach trips, not for fruity drinks and hotel robes. He started pacing. You're blowing this way out of proportion. Am I? He stopped moving. It was one birthday. You've had 74 others. I felt heat rise in my chest, but I stayed calm. It was the first one without your father, and I thought maybe, just maybe, you'd want to spend it with me. He groaned and sank into the chair like I was the one exhausting him. You're being dramatic. I blinked. Dramatic? Yes, he said. You had food. You had candles. You always say you don't need much. Why is this a crisis now? I leaned on the back of the chair across from him. You know what I remember, Miles, I said. I remember holding you when you had fevers. I remember selling my wedding ring so you could get braces. I remember skipping meals so you'd have lunch money. I remember sitting up praying when you were out past curfew. And you think bringing me a slice of cake makes up for what you took? He didn't say anything. I'm your mother, Miles, not your wallet. Still nothing. I straightened up and walked to the pantry, picked up the broom. You can go, I said. He looked up, confused. What? I need to sweep, I said. And I don't like sweeping around things that don't belong in this house. He stood slowly. Looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't. He walked out without another word, closed the door behind him harder than he needed to. A picture frame on the shelf rattled. It was the one of me and Raymond on our 40th anniversary. I walked over and straightened it, then sat down. The red velvet cake sat on the table untouched. I stared at it for a while, then picked up my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found the name written on a small card tucked into my Bible the week before. Lena Morris, Senior Legal Support, Franklin County Women's Center. I tapped, call. A woman answered. This is Lena. Hello, my name is Brenda Walters, I said. I think I need some help. Let me ask you, what would you do if your child crossed a line you never thought they would? Is there a point where silence becomes permission? Lena from the Women's Center called me back the next morning. She said she was sending someone over that afternoon. Said the woman's name was Thelma Griggs. She's good, Miss Brenda, Lena said. She's helped women in tighter spots than yours. Just be honest with her. I didn't know what to expect. I swept the front porch, wiped down the kitchen counter, and changed into a clean blouse. Not because I was trying to impress anybody, but because I wanted to sit at my own table, with some kind of dignity left. At 2:15 sharp, a silver sedan pulled up. The woman who stepped out was tall, maybe late 60s, with short salt and pepper hair, flat shoes, and a tote bag heavy enough to break a hip. She had a face that didn't waste time. I opened the door before she could knock. "You must be Brenda," she said, shaking my hand firm. "I'm Thelma." "Come on in," I said. "Kitchen's this way." She sat down, opened her bag, and pulled out a thin laptop, a notebook, and a pen. She looked around the kitchen like she was taking it all in, not judging, just noticing. "You said over the phone there's been some misuse," she said. "Can you walk me through it?" I told her everything. The birthday, the promise, the credit card, the photos, the email confirmation. She listened without interrupting, just nodded and took notes. When I was done, she closed her notebook gently. "Do you do your banking online?" "Sometimes," I said, "when I can remember how to log in." "Let's try," she said. "Let's look at what's there." I went and got my laptop. Same one from before. I sat next to her and typed in the password. We waited as it loaded. When the dashboard came up, even I could tell something was wrong. The numbers didn't look right. "Let me drive for a minute," she said, and I handed it over. She clicked through tabs and scrolled through transactions. Her eyes didn't miss much. She pointed at one line after another. Travel bookings, electronics, large withdrawals, transfers to a second account. "Who's Julian M.?" she asked. "My son," I said quietly. "Miles Julian." She nodded. "That account's in his name. Looks like he's been routing money from yours to his. Pretty regular, too." My stomach turned. She tapped on one transaction, labeled Consulting Services. "That him, too?" "Probably," I said. "He mentioned something about starting a business, but it never went anywhere." She looked at me, not cold, not hard, just real. "Miss Brenda," she said, "this isn't small potatoes. We're talking tens of thousands, over months, not just one trip." I felt like the floor shifted under me. "I thought I was helping," I said. "He said he'd pay it back." She didn't blink. "Helping is one thing, getting drained is another." She leaned back in her chair, took a breath. "Now, you can choose to do nothing. A lot of women do. Hope it stops, hope they come to their senses. But if you want to do something, real something, I can help." I looked at her, unsure. "What does that mean?" I asked. "It means we lock the accounts, change passwords, move your savings to a place he can't reach, cancel every card with your name on it, draft legal papers removing him from access. And if needed, we start paperwork for a financial abuse case." I sat still for a moment. My hands were clasped together too tight. "I'm not trying to ruin his life," I said. "He's still my son." She nodded slowly. "And you're still his mother. But he's treating you like an account balance, not a person." I looked down at the table. The wood was scratched and old, but it held everything steady. I remembered cleaning that table while Aria sat coloring, Dina talking on the phone in the next room. I remembered Miles sitting there as a boy, swinging his feet, asking if we could get takeout, even though I only had $20 left for the week. All the years, all the small sacrifices, and now this. "I don't want to be mean," I said. Thelma reached across the table, not to pat my hand or comfort me, but to get my attention. "This isn't about being mean," she said. "It's about being safe, and seen, and whole again." I sat there for a while. I could hear the refrigerator humming, could see the light shifting through the blinds. Then I nodded. "Okay," I said, "let's do it." Thelma smiled, just a little. "Good. Let's get started. Let me ask you, what would it take for you to choose yourself, even if it meant saying no to the people you love? Is standing up for yourself selfish, or is it finally being honest? It didn't happen all at once. Thelma and I took it step by step. She showed me how to change my passwords, real ones, not just birthdays and flower names. We called the bank together, answered all their questions, and froze every account that had Miles' name tied to it. Then we opened a brand new account, one just for me. She walked me through setting up a spending limit card and linking it to only the things I use: groceries, prescriptions, the light bill. Everything else? Cut off. The credit card I'd given him, canceled. The savings account I'd spent years building, moved. She even helped me get in touch with someone who knew about estate planning. A quiet man who listened more than he spoke. I told him I wanted my will updated. He didn't blink, just asked where I wanted it all to go. I told him I'd made up my mind. Not to family, not anymore. To a group that helps women like me. Women who gave too much and got stepped over for it. When it was all in place, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, maybe years. Control. Then, as Thelma said it would, the ripple came. It started with calls, missed ones. 3 in a row from Miles. Then a text. "Hey, why's my card getting declined?" Then another. "Mama, call me. This is serious." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. I was sitting on the porch when he showed up. It was Saturday, right after lunch. I heard the car pull up, fast. He came up the steps like he had something urgent to fix. I didn't move, just kept rocking. He didn't knock, just walked in again, like always. "What the hell is going on?" he asked, his voice sharp. I turned around and looked at him calmly. "You'll need to be more specific." "My account," he said. "I can't access anything. The business card got shut off at the gas station. I got a call from the bank this morning." "Mama, what did you do?" I stood slowly and walked inside. He followed. "I protected what's mine," I said. "You froze everything. I moved my money out of your reach." He stood in the middle of the kitchen, his face red. "How could you do this to me? I'm your son. I stayed by the table. And I was your mother. Still am. But you've been treating me like a bank, not a parent." "It wasn't like that," he said. "We were going to pay it back." "When?" I asked. "After I died?" "Once the house was sold and the accounts were split." He didn't answer. I reached into the drawer and pulled out an envelope. "What's that?" "My new will," I said. "Drawn up this week." I laid it on the table, flat. He stared at it, but didn't pick it up. "I'm giving everything to a foundation that helps older women recover from financial abuse," I said. "You taught me something important, Miles. That love without respect is just control." He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. Then, from behind him, Dina stepped in. She wasn't dressed up, no makeup, just a sweatshirt and old sneakers. She looked tired. "I told you this would blow up," she said quietly. "Stay out of it," Miles snapped. "No," I said. "Let her speak." Dina looked at me. Her eyes were glassy. "I didn't know how deep it went," she said. I thought you were okay with it. I didn't know he used your name, your money." I nodded once. "Silence speaks too." She looked down, then backed out of the room. Miles was still standing there, but his whole posture had changed. "So what now?" he asked. "You're cutting us off for good?" I didn't answer. I just picked up the will and slipped it back into the drawer. He stared for a second longer, then stormed out. Slammed the door so hard, the photo of Raymond on the hallway shelf tilted sideways. I walked over and straightened it. Then I went back to my chair. The breeze through the screen door felt cool on my skin. The sun was sliding across the yard. I sat with it. No anger, no tears, just quiet. What would you do if someone treated your kindness like a credit line? Can you love someone and still say, "That's enough"? I didn't plan anything big, just something simple, something that felt like mine. The community hall behind Mount Calvary Church was small, but cozy. The kind of place where folks hang handmade banners and fold chairs themselves. Sister Louise helped me reserve the little back room for my birthday. I picked out the menu myself. Nothing fancy, just good food I could count on. Deviled eggs, fried chicken, red beans and rice, coleslaw, peach punch, and a lemon pound cake with a light glaze. Thelma said she'd bring her greens. I told her she better not forget the hot sauce this time. Delano showed up first. That boy walked in holding a Bluetooth speaker and 24 flowers. He gave me a quick smile and said, "You ready to celebrate or what, Miss Brenda?" I laughed. "I've been ready." The music was soft, Mahalia Jackson humming through the speaker while I set out plates. The room smelled like comfort, and for once, I wasn't looking at the door, waiting for someone who wouldn't come. Then Thelma arrived, sharp as ever in her brown slacks and a vest with gold buttons. "Brought the greens," she said, "and a little something for your tea later." A few ladies from the foundation came next, women I'd only met in passing, but who hugged me like we were cousins. Some walked with canes, some brought their grandbabies, but every single one walked in holding something. Tupperware, a gift bag, a covered tray. We shared stories and slices of cake, laughed louder than we meant to, and danced even if our knees didn't move like they used to. I sat down at one point and just looked around. No perfect decorations, no matching shirts, no big show, but there was joy, real joy. I felt seen. Then I heard a knock. It wasn't loud, just 2 gentle taps. I looked over. It was Aria. She stood in the doorway, wearing jeans, a plain hoodie, and no makeup. Her hair pulled back, not a single new bracelet, not even earrings. She held a small card in her hand. "Hi, Grandma," she said, voice low. I nodded. "Hi." She stepped inside slowly. "I didn't know," she said. "About the money, about the trip. Daddy told me you didn't want to travel, that you were tired." I believed him. I didn't speak right away. She looked nervous. "I saw the receipts later," she said. "After. I should have asked more questions. I'm sorry." I stood, walked to the table, picked up a clean plate, and handed it to her. "Go on and fix you something," I said, "before Thelma finishes off that cake." She took the plate and gave me a soft smile, one full of guilt and hope. But I didn't hug her, not yet. That's not something you give back right away. It has to be earned again. We sat together a little later, eating side by side in silence. Not heavy silence, just the kind where words aren't needed yet. When the food was gone and the chairs were folded, Delano offered to drive me home. I sat in the front seat with the flowers in my lap, watching the city lights pass by. The car was quiet, but my heart wasn't. "Was today better than last year?" he asked gently. "It wasn't better," I said, looking out the window. "It was mine." At home, I stood on the porch a while. The air was cool, the kind that makes your skin tingle just enough to remind you you're still here. Inside, I made a cup of tea and slipped into my robe. I didn't check my phone. I didn't look for a missed call. I just sat at the kitchen table, alone, but not lonely. Because this time, I wasn't waiting. I was full. Not because everything was fixed, but because I stopped giving away pieces of myself to people who treated them like spare change. I still love them. That hasn't changed. But I've stopped loving them more than I love myself. That suitcase is still by the door, but it's empty now, and that's okay. I don't need to go anywhere to feel like I've arrived. I'm home. Have you ever given so much love that you forgot to save some for yourself? What would you do if your kindness was mistaken for weakness? If this story touched your heart, go ahead and like, share, and comment below. Let me know where you're watching from, and if you've ever had a moment where you finally said, "No more." And don't forget to subscribe for more stories just like this, real, raw, and meant just for you.